Welcome back, listeners to Learning from Friends. My name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide on this lovely adventure we get to do every 2 weeks together. And if you are just now tuning in, this is part 2, where I speak to Zack Thompson about aliens and Bigfoot. Again, we're just having discussion, sitting back, just two guys discussing ideas and opinions, and just philosophies and theories and all the different stuff out there. And the previous episode and this episode today. And we discuss a couple different books. We discover a couple of different types of evidences that has been mentioned, stuff mentioned in history. We give a bunch of different book titles of different people's names that be able to connect to their theorists as well. And it's a fun conversation. Before we kind of pick back up here, as usual, let's do our quote of the day. Mom, come back in for this one and give us a good one. Mom, take it away.
Today's quote is a poem by Thompson. When you've nothing to give but the love within your heart, a gentle touch is everything.
Thank you, Mom, for that quote. It's a great little piece of literature there to put us off on the right foot. Well, let's pick it back up in this conversation here where we left off at from the end of part 1. Why in the world do we put like the stereotypes on like saucers in the lights, and then like the green men with certain shapes and heads? Like, why? Like, is that more like a popular culture creation, or do you think that's more of something that we just kind of we need to label and put things like images onto stuff in order to associate? Like,
have you ever seen the movie Ted? No, no, it's not Ted. Paul. Sorry, Paul, yeah, he's an alien.
I was like, Ted,
not Ted Warner, you know, Paul. Okay. And Paul was like an alien that's just like in the movie, like got captured. He was like in Area 51, and they've been housing him, and then his theory is that we've been being drip fed alien information and technology and images, so that we're not freaked out when we come across them.
Fair.
And I thought that, I've heard that mentioned, but it's funny to hear it in a comedy with the alien himself. I think Seth Rogen voices Paul.
Yeah, I mean, like there was in the 1940s, that just became a huge thing. Mm-hmm. Like of having to have the shape and the saucer and like the lights, and that people kind of like started taking into.
So that you did do Project Blue Book to get into the bottom of some of the unexplained.
It's true.
USOs are always fascinating to me. Or, like you said, the different types of aliens, the grays, the little short dudes with big eyes. And, you have even maybe shapeshifters, or my favorite, the 12-foot tall interdimensional shape-shifting lizards.
Oh, yes.
David Icke, I believe is his name. He's written quite a number of books on that kind of subject alone. That was interesting.
Are cats aliens? I don't know. I'm saying, like, that's the whole thing. Like, cool cat. It has me curious here. Are we, in my brain, it's like all these species are here that are on Earth that are kind of coming through? Are we just a giant science experiment of like, if you look around at other like places, other locations kind of deal, why Earth as like being this one space, and why all these different creatures and interacting amongst each other? And I'm like, maybe, I don't know.
Well, maybe
there's so many movies and so many books and stuff that are written off that whole idea.
Maybe we're the asterisk. Maybe we're the outlier. Maybe Bigfoot was supposed to be the actual caretaker of the earth and the smartest species, and we're interlopers.
Could be.
Maybe we were brought here. Seeded. What is it?
Seeded. That's the word. There actually is a
spermia. Planets get seeded, for life.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I don't know if that's the right term.
There's a term that's very close to that but I think that's it. So who knows? That's what it could mean. We accidentally became the new like cockroach, and it took control because we're the most deadliest creatures.
Perhaps we're the experimenting not petri dish, but yeah, maybe this is where we're the lab rats.
Who knows? That's one thing that, again, we're not stating that this is it. We're just having a conversation here, guys. Like, we're not saying that this is end all be all by any means.
What do you want to do today, Brain?
Oh yeah, Pinky in the brain. Hey. We have all these telescopes. We have all these giant things that are out there, satellites and stuff. Why? Like, how do we not see or notice more of these things? Are they just amazing camouflage, or just like, it's just not something our telescopes can see. I don't know. That's something that's always a giant combatant that people come up with whenever it's talking about aliens.
It's a big world, man.
It's a huge
It's
world.
a big planet, and even as we've touched on already, a almost unfathomable galaxy and universe. I read a thing recently that was a form of lichen had existed for, I don't know if it was, I can't remember now if it was days or weeks or months outside, on the outside, lived in extreme temperatures, the outside of the International Space Station. Thought that was interesting.
That is, I haven't heard. That's interesting.
That was recent. I read that just like 3 or 4 days ago.
And you know, if spaceships are breaking science and speeds of sound and light and things like that, who knows? Like moving across, maybe we don't see it. Maybe they are microorganisms that are smaller. Maybe they're, you know, different in some ways. Well, they are different.
To answer your question, maybe odd way, if there is anyone with aliens that has an opportunity to see them, it would be our astronauts, our jet pilots. And they do have encounters, and some have been come forward as witnesses to at least say, I don't know what I can't explain necessarily what I saw, but there have been both fighter pilots, experimental pilots that see things that they can at least affirm are not our technology. Now, maybe it could be a foreign entity.
Yes, it could be,
especially modern day.
I know a lot of the times during the Cold War time that there was a lot that we brought up, and everybody would always use, "Oh, it's the Soviets are doing this." Like, were the Soviets that far advanced ahead of us? Who knows? Like, you know,
whoever the aliens are backing, I hope it's the U.S.
I just hope they let us live. That's all I just hope.
I heard once, I don't know if I heard it or read it, that Eisenhower was the first. I believe it was Eisenhower, the first U.S. No, maybe it was Truman. It was either Truman or Eisenhower was the first U.S. president to have a meeting with aliens that had a sit-down chat, orchestrated, very exclusive private event.
I have never heard of this. I love reading about a couple of those.
I can't remember if it was Truman or Eisenhower, but both were two of the first to have, if every president has.
We are getting a space program
correspondence. I'd like to see SNL do that, actually.
That would be hilarious. SNL does a good job with all their stuff over the years. That's the good show that's always evolved. In South Park, with all their different stuff too, they did an episode one day about how there's when I mentioned a theory earlier about are we just a science experiment? They did with aliens coming in and say, like, oh yeah, there's just a planet just of cows. There's a planet just of sheep, and like, oh man, we're just, are we a giant experiment? Whenever Cartman was abducted, like the 18,000 times he's got abducted.
Where's the planet of all women?
Yeah. Find your way there. Communication is always that kind of that key interesting thing. If there's, we've talked about statues and stuff that have been left behind. We talked about scientific advancements here with communication. How in the world are we looking at communication between these entities or ideas or unknowns?
Are you familiar with crop circles?
Crop circles. That's one that always has me curious here. What are they trying to tell us? Why?
I don't know about crop circles at large and in general, although there are some people who are, I think, pretty much just crop circle experts. And especially, I believe, the overwhelming majority first popped up and reported continually or in England, oddly, for whatever reason. Some of those are probably fake. I think some have been proven to be fakes over the years, but there's some that are exceptionally elaborate.
It's in the way that they're laid down too, of the heat and the temperatures and the way that things are cut. Yeah.
So a method that we know to do it. Now, I'm not saying a human couldn't be doing it. It's just not known to the public at large how whoever's doing it is getting away with it, which leaves me open to possibilities. There is one in particular crop circle that befuddles me. I don't remember what satellite, or maybe it was something we put on the moon. There once was a thing that NASA put out there, and it had a list, it had information that if we were trying to communicate with some entity out there that couldn't speak any language known, how could it understand some of this? And I can't remember what, I don't remember if it was on a computer chip or if it was in code or whatever it was. There was a response eventually in a crop circle. That was a retort It was basically what we had in that. I should have looked this up before I came. What we had in that information was like our planet, our solar system, which planet we were in the solar system, what a human looked like a little caricature of a human body.
Yeah.
And some other just basic, even celestial facts about where we were and who we are and where we're coming from. And I think it had like a message of peace or love somehow, or multiple languages on it.
Intermingled. Yeah.
Yes. And we get back a response that was in a different solar system, somewhere else, and a different, not humanoid creature that looks very similar to an alien creature as in response, in a crop circle. Although it was not very circular shaped, it's much more rectangular and digitized looking. Unlike any crop circle you're accustomed to seeing.
Yeah,
like
we're
the
used to
ones.
the ones that we probably, if you typed in crop circle right now, it will pop up on like.
You can find the picture of this one though. It's out there. I can't think of. I think it was in England also, but there are crop circles other countries now too have. But I think the vast majority continue to be in Europe and in England.
Yeah, that's the one I was always like, why? Like, why Europe? Is there more farming land out there? That we have the breadbasket of the world here in the Midwest. I'm like, why are we, why are you not taking care of the wheat and things like that here? Who knows? But I don't know. It could be more of the rural area. It could be more of like the population kind of leaving it be. And maybe it's the who knows? It could be anything. I'm theorizing in giant circles on that one.
I like your next question here.
The one of how do we believe the audible language?
Yeah, well,
because that's what it goes back to with Bigfoot. I'm like, there are so many frequencies that exist. Are they talking at different frequency levels? Are they able to communicate? Are they telepathic? Yeah, exactly. Telepathy. Who knows?
Telekinesis, telepathy. It's an interesting
mind
subject.
Control, just in general. Like, can they be able to just
cool
make
to
them
talk with a creature without, you can look somebody in the eye, and you can have connection with other animals, but it'd be neat to like hear.
Exactly.
Or send a message to someone else's brain. Yeah, that'd be neat. I don't know about aliens though, and having that capability. Until we meet one or see one, it's fun to theorize about.
Yeah, that's the one that pops in my brain of looking at communication, because we're still continually learning how we can be able to change it. Because I remember in high school, it was college. Whenever we started getting all like apps were starting to appear on smartphones and stuff, the different like frequency pitches that people would start to mess with. And this one really can make you sick. This one can make you nauseous. This one can be able to the
brown note.
The brown note, boom. Or like, and if only certain people can hear up to certain frequencies at certain times. And so what would be a sound would make, if you're 15 or below, you don't hear it. Or if you're 15 years or older, you hear it, and it's...
I can't remember that actually.
Yeah. Those were a fun app. And then it's always interesting to me whenever you hear that in your ear, then all of a sudden it goes away. It's like you apparently never hear that frequency ever again in your life.
I read a trick about that recently. It said if you take a water bottle, it's got like water in, like a regular plastic water bottle, and you got to spin it around, shake it up, and then hold it up to that ear for a second. It's ringing, and then take it away after like 5 seconds. It dissipates. It passes. And I've done it a couple of times. It actually seemed to work. And I read about that just a few months ago. And
I've never,
I had never heard of a solution to that. What you said about communication made me think of a gentleman, though, that worked for NASA, and on his deathbed. This was 5-7 years-ish ago, and I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he had been a NASA scientist. On his deathbed, confessed that NASA was not only had evidence of aliens, was communicating with them, and like body to body, like in the flesh. And he had correspondence with these guys, and he said they were your stereotypical, like little gray, ugly, kind of big-eyed aliens, and that they would communicate through telepathy. And he asked them to do him a favor. He said, when you're leaving our galaxy, would you take a picture of it? The galaxy, not the Earth. And
interesting.
When you come back, I would, and it was like with an old Polaroid camera. I would like to have the picture back. So on your way out, take the picture.
Come back in, bring it back.
Yeah, and he had on his deathbed even a picture of those aliens, which people said it's fake, and they look kind of stereotypical. And I can't think of the guy's name. You can find the images out there, but he had a picture of the alien and him also.
Do you have the picture of the universe?
I don't remember if they had the picture of the galaxy. I don't remember if that was published, but when his deathbed, it was a story for a couple of years, or when it came out, and I remember seeing the images of him, the aliens, and his story, that he wanted that to come out when he died, and so his son made it happen. But I don't remember if there was the picture of the galaxy. He's talked about that. I don't know if you ever get to see it. It was like a little interview. It was like a video of him too talking about it.
That's what I've always thought about with NASA, man. Of like,
well, they say
you never know. We're out there.
We're the whistleblowers. Well, some people have been willing on their deathbed or whenever to say, yeah.
Go out. I'm going out. Might as well. I'm gonna want to release my information here because of, gotta let the story release from me. Let it go, and that's where we go to next with our lovely Area 51. Look at NASA, Area 51 kind of deal. Well, what's your thoughts on that, on Area 51?
Well, it's certainly there.
Yeah, there's stuff there on it. Even though you do Google Earth and it's like cut off, and then you do other things, scans around it. You get near it, it's like, okay, you're met by fighter pilots and other different stuff. It's like, okay, guys.
You have to, if you're us, if you're U.S., if you're any country like us or China, Russia, you got to have somewhere where you do some sort of experimenting on craft, and that was even made more of a necessity in the 1940s and 50s, immediately after World War II,
that
space
Cold War
race
issues.
and the Cold War.
Yep.
So you had to have somewhere to do and develop things like that privately, and the desert is a pretty good location for that. I understand that.
Especially when you're blowing up stuff to test technology and all different stuff there.
When you have things being developed like the stealth fighter, stealth bomber that are very reminiscent to some UFO reports, I can understand why, especially when those were being developed, people would have reports of seeing UFOs that were probably similar to those. But my curiosity is perplexed by Area 51, and where are more of the whistleblowers if so many people have to work there? There's supposedly a plane that takes off from Vegas every day of privately people that work at Area 51, and it flies back. It's like an unmarked plane, or it has a red stripe or something like that. I can't remember.
Some kind of marking that sticks out for it.
It's not a normal plane there at the Vegas airport. But Bob Lazar was a guy who did come forth and said, I worked there. I believe it was Area 51. Yeah, it was Area 51, and then maybe he worked at the Wright-Patterson Air Base too. Supposedly that's where the wreckage of Roswell ended up. Yeah, Wright-Patterson Air Base, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you were correct on that one.
Eventually.
That one, I know Patterson kind of sticks out with me on that.
And he says, they had brought to me alien technology and said reverse engineer it. And he said, we have stuff that can, pretty much that we have, and that it was from some sort of otherworldly alien, not U.S. tech at the least, that is able to defy gravity. And perhaps if you can defy that, you might can defy time and space, at least the scientific laws as we understand them thus.
Yeah. That's the thing with science, the ever evolution. That kind of comes of
I think Einstein was not opposed to certainly the possibility of extraterrestrial life or space travel in general.
Yeah, because if you're, again, theoreticist going through that's the thick thing at the end of the day, you're open to possibilities.
He liked to have thought experiments where he would sit and smoke his pipe and think just sit there and think, not be disturbed, not
just think, almost like a meditative state, like a meditative state idea,
chilling, thinking about whatever. I don't know. I as an only child, I used to always have a lot of time to myself sometimes, so I would sometimes sit and think, and I thought it was cool when I first.
I need to be better about that kind of stuff of because I'm again one of three and big family, and it's just one of those I'm not used to being by myself, and that's something I'm working on.
Sometimes I'm too used to it.
True.
I have to get out there sometimes.
There is those times where it's sometimes too much, or sometimes it's not enough, and I'm one of those ones I just don't. I will fill gaps with people or things in order to not have that downtime. But again, we're all different people.
I always keep myself entertained. I've never been bored. Boredom is self-prescribed.
But boredom can be a very good thing, though.
It can. It's lovely to have downtime. I like to fill it with all the things I like. friends and
I agree.
Activities.
I had a long day today, and this is one of those ones I'm like, I came home at one point, I'm just like, I just need to sit for 5 minutes, but like, I'm like, at the end of the day, it's just like, no, you don't, Cade, you're good. You enjoy this. You know you're looking forward to that conversation that's coming up further.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are worse jobs. Teaching is pretty cool.
Teaching has its positives and negatives.
Oh, yeah.
Good days and bad days. Now, do you watch Doctor Who?
I have seen some Doctor Who. I am familiar with the
concepts.
Yes, I have never been able with any of the characters to get just I don't ever catch one like the first episode of a season at the beginning of it on BBC and then end up watching it all. I have went back and watched some. I have a friend who oddly likes to watch like the original Doctor Who.
Oh man, going back in time.
And some of those are kind of fun to have watched with him.
They're all very interesting.
He's the drummer of my band. Sometimes we do that with the mood strikes us, and that can be kind of fun and comical. And oddly, it reminds me a lot of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Sometimes,
yeah, it's one of those. I wish I liked it more. I liked the movie, but when I read the book, it was kind of one of those. Usually, you like the book more than you do the movie, but
right.
Man, I like the movie. Now, okay, with my reference back to Doctor Who here on this one here.
Yes,
he has the companions, correct, that travel with him.
Right.
Okay, if you had the opportunity, alien showed up. And goes, hey, you could be my companion, fly off with me, I'll kind of bring you back. You may miss spots of time, kind of go back and forth. Would you take that opportunity?
I would take a pause in consideration of my parents, who I enjoy great relationships with. But other than that, I currently don't have any other relationships that would tie me down, not even a dog I'd have to worry about to be like, keep me from going. So I'm inclined to say, I would say, yeah, F it, I'm down. Yeah, that could be fun. It makes me think of actually a biblical reference. Have you ever heard of the, at least considered, I think, by some to be a prophet, the man they called Enoch?
I've heard the name, but I don't know.
It only gets like
much about.
I think in the King James version of the Bible, he only gets like maybe one name reference mentioned, even like in a line of lineage. I believe, I might be mistaken on this. I believe it was Methuselah's grandfather was Enoch, who could trace back his ancestry, I believe, to Abraham. Enoch, he has his own book, a book that is not included
into the Bible.
Yes, and it is a story that he kind of gets met, I believe. I don't remember which angel it is. Maybe it's Gabriel. I'm not sure. Anyways, he goes up basically in kind of what's described as a fiery chariot. And, it could be a vehicle. But he comes back after his trip and expects things to be the same. And it's like 300 years later. The Earth was into the future. So I don't know. Everyone he'd ever known had lived and
died, and their great grandchildren are there.
So would it be worth it or not? I don't know.
That's the challenge. Like with Doctor Who, at least they're popping back in their own timeline, and they drop them off, and they kind of like, oh, okay, you get to see it, but you don't know what you're gonna get because did they have the same concepts of time we do? Like, do they look at? Because if you look at history, all we are is a small blip on the radar in.
Even comparison, the human history we know of.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Egyptians and Romans had empires and dynasties that lasted hundreds and thousands of years. Our country's only a couple hundred years old.
So what may they think? Oh yeah, we're gonna drop you back in your timeline, but that timeline could be like to them, 1,000 years is like half a second. So
we're still a babe in the woods, and as Benjamin Franklin said, we have a republic if we can keep it, and for a little while we have. But I mean, hopefully the history of the U.S. has a long tenured history to come that will extend, I hope, millennia. But there have been empires and peoples, cultures that did last that long.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think we might be getting too big for our britches. Well, those guys eventually had their cataclysms and collapse for one reason or another, and different days and ages. Mayans, they all had their heyday, and then they all have
the downfall,
vacating of those monolithic structures and civilizations that predate our own. Some of which have left behind very interesting structures that can be explained still to this day, like in South America particularly.
Yep. Yeah, that's the challenge of you never can tell. And with time, space, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, it's kind of throw that there. It's a spirituality, mythology, just oh man, it's like you can just go on and on and on and on with the topics of what is the unknown? What is,
lots of nuances there to be delved into of crevices of alien and Bigfoot, and sometimes those things, including religion, can start to blur.
It's true.
That's what's fun to explore.
That's the cool thing about, like, just in general, why I love history, why I love science is there really is no end. There always is more that could be uncovered, like every single year, especially with how our technology is increasing, of how we're able to scan the universe for things, how we're able to look at our ground a lot deeper than we ever have before.
The satellite telescopes we're sending deep out into space, they can take better and better, clearer images that
every day
we get back. And then, the things that we're going to uncover, like we said earlier, archaeologists, anthropologists, historians have only been able to delve so deep into recorded history and unrecorded history that it takes a lot of time to unearth and especially find under the ocean. I mean, 10,000 years ago, our sea levels and coastlines and what may have been many of the cities
drastically different
were way further down and might still be underwater. And much of that is yet to be learned. How the story of human history will change and the books will be rewritten.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That might be some of the hesitation of mainstream academia. They don't want to rewrite those books. That's a lot of work, a lot of money.
But there's money to be made. There's always the mighty dollar speaks. And that's with history, you could read history books from less than 20 years ago, and they're drastically different in time of certain situations than what they are today. It all comes down to political and physical and your locations of, I always like to use the frame when I'm teaching history, there's 3 sides to a coin. Because you have, so I'm going to use the US and I'm going to use like Vietnam. You have our perspective of our soldiers being in there. Then you have the citizens that are in the country that are living there, that are when we're fighting the war. And then you have those border countries that are seeing the outside looking in, but don't really have anything in the fight.
Such as Laos.
Exactly, bombs. Laos, Cambodia, and all that. Like it's so there's all these different perspectives, and you can look at that with almost anything of what we may be learning about Vietnam in Czechoslovakia may be entirely different. I'm not speaking for another country and what it is, but we look at each perspective is going to be, you could have the theory of a man runs into a room, grabs something from the back, runs out in less than 5 seconds. And there's 30 people in the room. More than likely, you're going to have at least 5 to 10 different stories if there's 30 people in that room.
What's the old elementary game? Like you
telephone?
Whisper in somebody's ear, and then the story's totally different by the time it gets back around.
So, could it be mind play? Whatever that kind of leads to it. I don't know. Exciting. Different thoughts. And especially with those that are watching Curse of Oak Island, all that continual stuff of how they're uncovering more and more things with technology, but it's all technology.
I like that show. I'm eager to know what they will one day uncover. Maybe it is the Ark of the Covenant in there, the Holy Grail. Who knows? Maybe it was by the Templars. Maybe not.
Maybe not. Now we're going on the side with we're jumping from aliens to Bigfoots to looking at the Knights Templar and all the Illuminati and all this stuff. You never know.
Templars and aliens could
be connected.
Certainly be drawn together at certain points.
Now we're gonna have someone knocking on our door in the next little bit. I'm going, and we're like, "What happened?"
I thought about that before I came to this.
True.
Some agent with sunglasses and earpiece in, waiting for me at my door when I get back.
Yeah, Men in Black style. Click it and erase that memory.
That's all right. I forgot more than most people know.
I feel you every day. I feel you every day as that comes up. Of that, I'm losing more and more of our mind. But I think that's part of getting older as well. I just passed around 35 years old, and I'm like, man, now I'm making that old statement. So I'm getting old, and I can't remember this, and my body aches.
Oh, it's better the alternative. I like getting old.
No, I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. There's one of those things that I now realize, like certain things, and I'm like, oh man, like now I totally understand what my dad was saying or this was saying. That now it makes sense.
We'll keep getting as many ski trip ins while I can.
Yeah, and that makes me curious of like the wisdom here of going back to the timeline sequence here of we live X amount of years, and that's kind of our lifespan. How long do we think a lifespan could be of an alien or, other or Bigfoot? Do they live a lot longer than us or shorter periods of time of us?
I would say if it is as far as Bigfoot, and I tend to, and I had this discussion with someone recently, and I think they were a little bit surprised. I mean, another person that we would both think the possibility of Bigfoot is more likely, perhaps, than that of any aliens. Not because life couldn't exist, or not because they couldn't get here, which I would think if they do exist, that is more likely than they've been able to travel here. However, Bigfoot is already here.
Yeah.
And Gigantopithecus was a creature that existed at the turn of the last ice age that we know existed.
Yeah.
It's been documented.
Recorded.
And like we said earlier, there's multiple types of hominids, very intelligent creatures similar to ourselves that developed and died out and interbred in. Who's to say Bigfoot's not some remnants of that in some fashion, or a descendant of some similar creature that, like us, survived the ice age? Whereas most of the large fauna do not.
Because you can look at, why do we have people that are 8 feet tall?
Right.
Almost 9 feet tall.
That's
there's
pretty
gotta
big.
Be something that's in place to it.
Shaq, Yao Ming, those other guys, Bigfoot's not that much taller than those dudes.
And then, we do have people that, and generally before us, before humans, apes, and then were hairy, like they had the hair that passes along. I know people that are just extremely hairy already right now.
True.
They have the shape constantly,
well,
what's the...
Yeah, in the Bible, the Nephilim,
Yes.
They might have been giants, or had the offspring that were giants. And then in Malta, in the Middle East, on Cyprus, Malta, and one other island there, I can't think, in the Mediterranean, where they have many supposedly giant graves. Not with the bodies on them,
but the graves
still giant graves.
You could think of the idea of Goliath as being a giant in a way as well.
Goliath himself was a huge dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's similar because, David himself, most mentioned guy in the Bible. But how much evidence is there to David? They've come up with a coin recently. But there's not that much, if any, more evidence other than that one recent coin they think might date back to David, and I think might have his name on it. Of his actual existence. And he's the most mentioned name
in the Bible.
Biblical text. Yet, a lot of people I know would certainly think David was in existence, and Goliath, and yet might be skeptical to the openness of the possibility of extraterrestrial intelligent life or Bigfoot.
And that's the fun part with the conversation. Look at, you never know. If you don't sit down and have the conversation, how can you make a decision for yourself? Like we're doing right now. It's like, have the conversation, be open to ideas. Doesn't mean you have to believe it by any means, but at least sit down and go through it. What's the other book you've got down there?
That's what this whole book.
The Old Straight. What's the other one?
Oh, the Old Straight Track. That's about ley lines. I think you might like this one. It's about ley lines. This is here: mounds, beacons, moats, sites, mark stones. Mainly, I believe this is talking about, published in 1925. It's early 1900s, late 1800s. This dude, I believe it was the author, Alfred Watkins, was interested in those types of places that he was familiar with in England, I believe some in Ireland, and throughout other parts of Western Europe, that he thought could be connected, that weren't just places that had been made on the map, that there were lines like the AT, like they were markers on trails, and that some of these lines crossed, and some of them maybe pointed to certain auspicious places, churches eventually. Maybe there was something there before it was a religious place. That long ago, that some of these places, hills, mounds, where there's some structures, that they were connected. And this is right when people are starting to fly, right before,
yeah. why would they need to have the marker there if they're not already flying in kind of that range?
It's a lot easier to see some of these things from the air, and people eventually did start using these when they started flying because they were easy markers to utilize when you fly, especially before we had
all the real kind of mechanisms we do today.
Aero instruments, yeah. So it was
the radar and things like that.
It is interesting that he would pick up on that from the ground before pilots would eventually use that. And it's interesting, he doesn't so much contend that aliens have anything to do with it, but others later have questions.
We'll question it up.
It's intriguing.
There's a lot of literature out there. There's a lot of stuff that's out there that, do you have any recommendations or suggestions for people?
I would start with this other book, actually. Erich von Däniken, Chariots of the Gods, Memories of the Future. I like that. Unsolved Mysteries of the Past, which is what we've been talking about. And I'm disappointed in myself that in 2008, I took a trip with my parents to go skiing. I like to snow ski.
Yeah, you mentioned 2 or 3 times that you love skiing.
We went to Vingen, Switzerland. It's a cool town. Very quintessential Swiss village.
Nice. That's something I haven't got over that part.
The Lauterbrunnen Valley. It is amongst, if not the prettiest mountain valley in all the world, perhaps. The Icke, the Monk, and the Jungfrau overlooking it all. And one of the world's most famous ski races right there as well that ends in the town of Vingen. There's even been a Bond film there. But what I did not know, that is in the nearby town that you go through on your way to Vingen, Interlaken, which is literally like it sounds. It's right between 2 lakes, Interlaken. It's 2 very pretty lakes. As crystal clear water as I have ever seen. Oh. See through to the bottom and see the fish swimming from the train. It was pretty cool. I did not know, though, that Erich von Däniken has his own Chariots of the God, Ancient Aliens museum there. And had I known that, had my father and I been aware, I knew he had a place, but I didn't realize it was there. I would have stopped by. But yes, I'd like to go there even one day. He's an older gentleman now. I think he's still alive, but he may not be. I think he's got to be in his 80s, if not 90s. But I would like to get there. It'd be cool to get there while he was still alive to be able to possibly talk to him. But it would be a neat thing to check out. I like to go to museums. That would be a cool experience.
I definitely say some museums, like you can spend days and weeks and stuff in there.
The Booth Western Art Museum is like the largest collection of like Western art in the country. It's pretty neat.
Now I'm going to ask you a question to ask a question. The question we're going to Inception here. Inception. If you had the ability to be able to speak with aliens of some form, what question would you ask?
You know, I remember looking at this a couple of days ago, and I remember I came up with a really great response, and I'm like, oh, that's what I'm going to say. And I do not remember what that
What does 42 mean? What's the question of 42?
Yeah, that would have been a
What's
good
the
one,
question for the answer of 42?
That would have been a good one. I can't remember what it was. I was like, that's going to be my response. I was discussing with my father, and I can't think of what it is. If I had to be able to ask a question of an alien, what would it be?
Because you can't just go with the whole idea of like, what's the secret of life? Because they may go burp, like in Dogma, where they kind of boop your nose.
That would be that interesting. Movie. I don't think.
But yeah, that's a challenging question to think about. What's important to you may not be important to someone else, and then what knowledge do they may say, I don't know.
Would I want to know a question for the betterment of mankind, or just my own personal selfish interest and intrigue? That is a good one.
I'm going to put you on the spot right now. I'm going to give you 15 seconds to be able to come up. The first one that comes up your head, because if you never know when the alien's going to pop up, what's going to be, you got that 15 seconds on the spot, the alien's going to be gone. I'm going to count you down here in my head.
15 seconds.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bam.
I don't know. I'll probably ask something like, maybe something kind of simple. Like, what's your name? Like a basic pleasantry. Like, if you meet somebody in another culture, learn another language, they teach you, ask what's your name. You know, I'd be interested to know what an alien's name is. Because like I said, the only name I've ever heard of one supposedly would be Valiant Thor. And I think that's a pretty darn cool name.
That's pretty dark.
I don't know, like, I don't want to be rude.
That's true. Because you don't
set a good precedent for mankind.
The kindness. You may have stopped an entire war right there. That's a great. That's
you could have caused. You could unintentionally cause one, maybe. What
potential? What is your name? Why did you ask my name?
To the cosmos, and that's all you got for me? I'm going back. Come on, Fred. Let's pack it up.
That's the thing. You never can tell. But if they just say you have one question to ask or something like that, and you got to have that conversation.
As you were counting me down there, it made me think of the scene in Dances with Wolves when they're trying to have their first conversation and they can't communicate, and you know, eventually they get like to Tatanka. But
yeah,
you know, at first he's like, wait, to his friends, like, no, we should introductions and
that's the way we
share our names first. That's pretty much universal in every culture. So I don't know. You gave me a few seconds there. I think that might be what I go with. I don't think that was the answer I had in my mind a few days ago when I dwelled on that topic.
Yeah, that's definitely one that I still haven't been able to come up with an answer with as well. And I don't know if I was put on the spot on it. I'm going to give myself 10 seconds. I'm going to give myself 10 seconds. What question would I ask?
Catch you down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Where are you visiting us from? Where are you from? Because we always go with like, whenever you ask my app, you kind of asked the name. My brain went to, where are you from?
That was one of my other thoughts.
Yeah, where are you from? Because if we're like an alien from outer space, even though we may not be able to understand that,
I was to say, I don't know that we'd be able to have a conception of it. Yes,
but at least we'd be able to say something of like, where are you from? What is this? Okay, what does that mean? But at least you have something to look forward to try to figure out. It's kind of like with all of 42 and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. They're all trying to figure out what the question is, but it's like, okay, at least I'd have somewhere to kind of like base off of, even though I have no idea. It's a tough one.
42.
That's
a good number. I like that.
Now, there's a lot that we have covered here. We've gone through a lot of things. We've asked a lot of questions. Are there things that we still have not yet to cover that you want, that you think, hey, man, we need to talk about this real quick because you've overlooked this, or I want to discuss this?
Trying to think if there's any alien or Bigfoot stories that I haven't yet. You know, when I join you next time, I'm very hopeful to get to talk to one of my new friends who has his own skunk ape encounter.
Oh yeah, we didn't. Yeah,
he's recently started playing music with us, and he came in wearing one of those Bigfoot expedition shirts. And I went up there one day, and it was.
Is that the one up in Blue Ridge?
It is, and it was actually just.
I want to go check that one out.
It was fun to walk around. They had something in there I had never thought about very much. It was a replica of a Bigfoot scat, which was quite large.
I could believe that's a big creature.
Not one I had. I'm glad I hadn't thought about that too much, but it was.
Everybody poops, you know.
Exactly. Which some people might think, where's the scat? But
cats bury their poop.
Right.
I don't know where my cats poop half the time if they're not pooping in the litter box.
It was interesting to go through there, and I like stickers and magnets, and it was kind of cool to get a few things in there. And he had the shirt on, and then he and I got to talking, and I remembered we're both Bigfoot aficionados, and he was telling me himself that he has his own skunk ape story, which I've yet to hear, that I hope might be divulged Saturday. So maybe when I return, I can add that in with the Native American stuff.
I mean, yeah, really neat. Whenever I'm gonna write myself a note here to ask about the skunk ape story, like later, whenever.
There is. I thought about mentioning earlier. There's one really good recorded closer to like our lifetimes when it began in the early 90s, I believe it is. There is a great photograph of what was going on in Belgium one summer.
Is this the one where it's like walking, where you stand up and walking through? Is it this?
No, it's like it's an alien spacecraft.
Oh, we're doing aliens. Okay, sorry, I thought you were talking Bigfoot.
And yeah,
we were talking about Bigfoot a second ago.
And that is an interesting one, because the guy just kind of walked out of his street or car and took the picture of what was this Belgium triangle people kept spotting around in, and just this tiny country of Belgium for like 2 or 3 months, I think, or maybe it was 2 or 3 weeks, I can't recall. But one summer, I believe in like early 90s or 89, one of those, and that's an interesting one. And the image is kind of interesting. There is research and intrigue for your listeners who have more interest in Bigfoot and aliens. If you do some digging, really want to get into the topics, there is a plethora of reading material out there, and even videos now, as you said earlier. Be careful who you listen to.
Yeah, there's so many conspiracy theories and all the different stuff out there. And that's the hard part right now of the age that we are in. There's so much content. It's about that people could put in and say.
Be hesitant to listen to Alex Jones a lot. I once read a book in a college class that was about. It was written by a British journalist named John.
Now we're gonna get a cease and desist letter from him saying that we're butchering his name. My man. I'm gonna send that ticket to you.
And he was on in that book, and towards the end of it, some of the most interesting parts of that book, living with extremists. This guy is kind of getting to the bottom of some people out there, like he titles extremists, and people are into some conspiracy theories of different sorts, Bohemian Grove, Bilderbergs, etc. And eventually he and Jones sneak into, or at least they think they sneak into the Bohemian Grove out in California. And he's got like a camera on his beeper. And it's interesting. The film is kind of hard to watch. It's like a couple hours long, and it's from the side shot. So it's
a little hard to see.
It's difficult, but it is interesting nonetheless. Now, they may have been put on a show, but it's some supposedly interesting clientele that frequent the Bohemian Grove get together, and it's interesting. But yeah, I that was my first time I learned of him, and that was when this book was being written. Was late 90s, I think, early 2000s when this went on. So he did not have the exact same platform I think he has today, although I believe it was beginning back then.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere to be able to build that empire that exists out there.
There's some good chapters in that book, though. Interesting read.
I always say whenever talking to people is, hey guys, like you may not agree with the other side, what they're saying, but at least be knowledgeable in some way, form, or fashion to have some kind of argument or have some kind of conversation. Because if you don't understand something, just because it's different doesn't always mean it's wrong.
Well, how do you hope to get along if you can't at least try to listen to the other side and try to understand one another, come to a hopeful agreement and conclusion, or better yet, as kind of the part of the basis of our system of governments and society is to compromise.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Some of the best documents were written from when multiple sides didn't agree. They all bring something in. They offer betterment for all of mankind.
Hope so. Yeah. Might not work out that way, but that's at least a valiant effort.
Exactly. At least you're gonna try. Are there any last words of wisdom or things that you want to put out there? It could be unrelated to Bigfoot and aliens, or it could just be kind of a life lesson, or whatever you're kind of feeling.
I once had a dream. I was awake, and I woke up, and I was still asleep. I'll let the audience think on that one.
It's like some Inception stuff right there.
No, man, go out there and explore. It's fun. I just like it. I have many interests. As you mentioned, I love football. I love sports. I love skiing, travel, geography. And then history, and Bigfoots and aliens is just another aspect of studying, everything that's interesting out there to me. I can't wait to discuss Native Americans. I know that topic intimately also. I have a degree in the field even. So it also greatly interests me. I had no intention of getting even my history degree or becoming a teacher, or certainly becoming a Native American historian. I've always been interested in Native American studies. I liked always studying and watching old films of the West and studying that.
The romanticization that was there.
Well, not totally.
I'm saying as a child is what we see.
Right.
Like as a child, not as we get older, but as a child.
I always had questions. How come the Native Americans got the depiction? They're kind of the bad guy, the anti-hero. I had questions early on. I remember going to Maggie Valley, going to Ghost Town Sky and checking out things up there in that area and being perplexed by the story of the Cherokee and the Native Americans' plight in general as I studied history as I went. So it might not be too surprising that I ended up at the school I did and learned some of the stuff I did, and even played ball out there with my teammates at Fort Lewis to where, 75% of my classmates were Native Americans from all over the continental U.S. and Canada and even Hawaii, Mexico. It was a lot of different peoples and cultures to learn about, with a school that was roughly the same size as Cherokee when we attended it.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I kind of wish I would have pushed myself a little bit and maybe got out of state or gone somewhere else in order to kind of see a little bit different. Now, you can say anything. I left the country and taught in Ireland and I went and I've done a couple other things. But yeah, when you're younger, trying to get those information is always
Japan.
Hard.
I like to teach in Japan abroad. Oh yeah, that'd be cool. I like Japan. They got some great snow and skiing in Japan.
Always coming back to snow and ski for you.
It actually does, yes. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought I would end up out there either.
Life takes us in all many different directions. Again, my wife's from Ohio and I'm from here, and we just kind of met in odd circumstances within Ireland, and here we are today.
I thought you guys met in Ireland.
Yeah, so. All those weird little stuff here. Now, as we're coming down here, we're looking at. I'm going to have you back on. We'll talk about the Native American history stuff later when we get back in. If anyone would like to reach out to you on these two topics that we just discussed here, what is a way that they can be able to kind of reach out here?
I'll say my Instagram page. I think it's Z_Bob dot Thompson1. I believe that might be right.
I'll put the handle down in the show notes. I'm going to go through and get a bunch of the little topics we've talked about. I'm going to make a list of a couple things we've mentioned. So look in the show notes to be able to see a couple little links or a couple different topics that we discussed, so you can be like, oh yeah, what did he say about that, to look it up. So I'll make sure I put that down there as well. And you can always email me as well. But is there any other things that they can be able to reach out or follow besides the Instagram? Is that just where we're going to leave it at?
They can, they want to check out my band. We still got our website.
Plug your band, man.
We Apple Brandy. It's actually my father's band. I got to join after college. I play harmonica and some guitar and bass, and we hopefully have a new friend maybe joining us, and we'll be playing live maybe in a few months again.
Well, the Skunk Ape story? Is he the one with the skunk ape?
That is actually who it is. Yeah, our new guitarist. So I'm, I don't know if we'll work that into a show, but
maybe at least a song. See. At least maybe a song or something.
You guys can check us out at applebrandyband.com, or we have our own Apple Brandy Instagram page too, and I think we got a Facebook page also.
Zack, thank you for coming on here and spending your evening with me on this after a long day of teaching.
It was a good day. I was energized and excited to come here, man. I was telling some people about it, and I know there's some people that work with me that listen to your podcast and were eager to hear it later on. And yeah, dude, it was cool. I'm thoroughly enjoyed it and very much looking forward to the next time, and rock and roll and go Dogs.
There you go. That's perfect. It's a good way to end us out here. Now, if you want to reach out to me, get some more information, follow me and whatnot, I'm on pretty much any platform that you can listen to podcasts on. I'm trying to get onto the YouTube podcast channel area that could be able to get through, but I really don't do the videos or do any of that stuff. So I'm just kind of wanting to get on their music side of things. But I'm on all those different platforms of, Spotify. I know Google Podcast is going away and it's moving over to another platform. But, if you want to refer it to some friend or somebody, just look up Learning from Friends. There's learningfromfriends.com. There's a Facebook page, Learning from Friends Podcast. I have a Twitter, which I just kind of post episodes on, which every so often I'll kind of read messages to be able to respond back to. I do have a Patreon page, Learning from Friends Podcast. You can be able to go in and donate at your will. I don't do the little stages or levels of stuff. You can just be able to kind of go in and donate $1, $10, $100, whatever you're feeling up to your heart desire. The email, if you want to be able to reach out to me, is cade, CADE, at learningfromfriends.com. I do my best to check up on that at least every other day, to respond back to emails, just because you never know the kind of people you can connect with over time. And that's kind of the cool thing I've had some people that I've contacted from universities to get reached out to some of my guests. I've had some guests that have come on that have talked about interesting subjects, and they just kind of wanted to get some more information, and connected them up with some people. So we are in several different countries that people listen to, so you never know where that kind of goes.
Right on.
Yeah, exactly. It was very surprising when I started to look at some of that. And it's not just VPN like drops. It's actually like some people have contacted me from around the world. I'm like, that's really cool. But my biggest suggestion here, my request of you is, if you like this podcast, you like the topic we're discussing, refer it to a friend. Say, hey man, let's check this out. Go listen to it. The best advertisement is word of mouth, because it's your stamp of approval on something. You can post something on social media. You can post things like that. That works too. But really just telling somebody goes a long way, because you can describe it better that way. That's my little request here from you guys. As we leave out here, I'll give you my little sign off as we do with all episodes. My name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide on this lovely adventure that I like to call Learning from Friends. And most of all, don't forget to let your curiosity fly high.